bullies rip the shy girl's blouse. What happened next shocked everyone at school. Clara could feel the heat rising to her cheeks, a mix of rage and humiliation. Just moments before, she'd been walking to her locker, hoping for a quiet day. But then, a group of popular students surrounded her like vultures, their laughter echoing like thunder in her mind. They sneered and whispered, each taunt a dagger that plunged into her heart. "Look at the little mouse all alone!" One of them called, their voice dripping with mockery. And then it happened. A hand reached out, yanked at her blouse, and in a split second the fabric tore away, leaving her exposed and trembling. Gasps and snickers rippled through the crowd of students. Clara's mind went blank. The room spun. She felt the weight of stares on her skin, like 1,000 burning suns. It was a moment of sheer terror. That paralyzing feeling when the world shrinks to nothing but the sound of your own heartbeat. As she fled down the hall, Clara stumbled into a classroom, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. Tears blurred her vision as she pressed her back against the cool, unforgiving wall. But what she didn't know was that a force inside her was awakening, a power that had been hiding, waiting for a moment of despair. Then, as if sensing her turmoil, the flickering lights above began to stutter. Clara's hand twitched, and without understanding how, she sent a pulse of energy crackling through the air. Suddenly, the entire school was plunged into darkness. The lights went out in a blink. Chaos erupted. Screams echoed, chairs clattered, and all of a sudden, the confident bullies that had once tormented her were thrown into a sudden panic. "What just happened?" someone yelled, their voice rising above the cacophony. In the swirling dark, Clara felt the fear seep into her own heart. But in that same moment, she felt something else. Control. She had wielded electricity without even trying. Clara felt the rush of adrenaline. But along with it came a tinge of regret as she remembered the faces of her classmates in the darkness, frightened and confused. As whispers travelled through the panic, Clara overheard snippets of conversations that made her stomach drop. "This isn't how it's supposed to work. They'll be furious. We can't let them know." Those whispers belonged to the very people who had bullied her, now suddenly terrified, glancing around as if they were hiding a secret. In the darkness, she felt the shift. The atmosphere was charged, and a chilling reality settled over her. Were these bullies part of something deeper? Something sinister? Something that had been shadowing her school for years? Clara's heart raced as fear grappled with curiosity. Could she really embrace this power? Would it lead her to confront the truth about the society lurking within the walls of her school? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just do a quick check on that red button down below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content coming your way. And since you're here, smash that like button. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person in this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In the thick darkness, panic swirled like a storm, echoing the fear in Clara's heart. She pressed her palms against the cool walls, trying to steady her breathing. But just as she thought she had taken control of her newfound power, a loud crash jolted her back to reality. The sound sliced through the fear, and she couldn't help but shudder. A voice pierced the chaos. A girl's frantic screams ringing out from somewhere in the dark. "Get away from me! I don't want to die! Clara's heart lurched. It was Sarah, one of the bullies. Clara felt a twist in her stomach, the very same girl who had tormented her just moments ago. Why did she feel a flicker of concern? Then it happened. There was a sudden light, the single blinding flash that illuminated the whole hallway for a split second. Clara squinted, her eyes wide. Her breath caught in her throat as she caught sight of something sprawled on the floor. It was someone she never thought she would see in this context. Jamie, the school's star athlete and one of the most popular kids in school. He lay still, his face pale amidst the chaos. Clara's pulse quickened. Why would he be here? What happened? Before she could process it, a murmur broke through the darkness. He's not moving. A group of students gathered, their shadows crowding around Jamie, forming a dark circle, whispering horrified questions. Clara felt paralyzed. Fear crested over her like a wave. What if her power had caused this? Someone call an ambulance! The voice rang out, but it seemed to disappear into the thick air, swallowed whole by the fear. And then the crowd parted. Clara caught a glimpse of Sarah, her earlier bravado gone. She knelt beside Jamie, shaking him, fear etched deep in her eyes. "Wake up! Please!" Clara's heart raced. Despite everything, she couldn't just stand there. She stepped closer, her feet hesitating at first, but dread propelling her forward. As she approached, another flicker ignited the atmosphere. This time, Clara could feel it in her bones, a thrumming energy that pulsed around her. Suddenly, Sarah locked eyes with Clara, the anger and confusion in her expression suffocating. "You did this! You made the lights go out! You hurt him!" "That's not true!" Clara shouted back, her voice trembling. But as she spoke, the intensity of the energy swelled. Clara's hands crackled with electric possibilities, and she blinked, realizing that the whispers she had heard before were coming from her own thoughts. A sliver of doubt crept in. Was this power really hers, or was it linked to something else entirely? In that moment, Jamie stirred. A low groan escaped his lips as the crowd hushed. His eyelids fluttered open, confusion clouding his gaze. What happened? Everyone seemed to lean closer, hearts pounding in unison. Clara felt the weight of 1,000 gazes, each one filled with uncertainty. She realized then that Jamie was not just another victim. He carried the weight of their shared nightmares, their hidden truths. But before she could react, the lights flickered back on, illuminating everything. The equinox of panic and confusion shattered as light poured into the hall. Clara looked around, and then it hit her. The shock of realization. The school's walls, once a shelter, now felt like a prison. There was something dark lurking within them, something that connected them all. Then Clara saw it. Paper slipped from Jamie's hand, fluttering silently to the floor. The crowd gasped as it landed, revealing a messy scrawl with one stark, terrifying phrase: "The truth will out." Before she could understand, the ground shook, a low rumble vibrating through the air. Suddenly, the power in Clara surged again, pulling her thoughts. She felt the energy change and shift, igniting a desire within her to uncover the darkness beneath the surface. What truth? What darkness? Everyone was looking at her, eyes filled with fear, expectant. Clara's heart raced, an electric pulse of dread mixed with excitement. What had she awoken? What power remained to be unveiled? It was already too late. Yet something deep inside her whispered that this was just the beginning. Clara's heart raced as the lights flickered back on, shining into the faces of the crowd. Their expressions were a whirlwind of horror, confusion, and fear. She could barely process what had just happened. The paper with the ominous message lay at her feet. The words, "The truth will out," ringing in her mind. But then, something really shocking happened. With a sudden, ear-splitting crack, the ceiling above them shuddered. A loud bang reverberated through the hallway, and it felt like the world was splitting in two. Clara stumbled back, eyes wide in terror, as dust rained down like snow. The first thing she noticed was the shifting forms in the shadows. They seemed to pulse, alive in their own way. "Get down!" someone shouted, but it was too late. With a horrifying roar, a large section of the ceiling collapsed. It crashed down where Jamie lay, sending debris flying. The crowd screamed, panic exploding like fireworks. Clara felt a jolt of fear travel through her. They were all in danger, but her body moved on instinct. She reached out, desperate to save him. The energy inside her surged, flaring like a heart-catching fire, and she focused. The air crackled, pulling at the very lights above as sparks flew. Time seemed to slow. Clara raised her hand, trying to channel that electricity into a shield to protect Jamie. And then she released it. A bright flash surged through her, engulfing her fears and rewriting her reality. Instead of a shield, a massive burst of blinding light erupted, the force of it hitting everyone like a wave. When the light faded, Clara blinked. The crowd was frozen, eyes wide, mouths agape. But what shocked her even more was the sight before her. Jamie was gone, just vanished. Not a trace, not a sound. The pulpy remains of the fallen ceiling now had an empty space where his body had been. "Where's he?" Clara's voice trembled, piercing through the heavy silence. Panic flooded her veins. The murmurs in the crowd grew frantic. "It can't be," someone stammered. "He was right here!" But Clara felt a sinking weight in her stomach. A heaviness that told her this wasn't just a freak accident. Something more sinister was at play. Sarah's eyes of the students. They were no longer just frightened. They were terrified of her. Clara could feel it. The energy pulsing, shifting. This wasn't about the bullies anymore. This wasn't just a reaction to what had happened. The connection she felt, the energy coursing through her, it was part of something bigger. The whispers started again, quickening in intensity. She knew. She knew something. What if this means she's... Each accusation rooted deeper into Clara's heart, like thorns twisting in her chest. Was this the truth that would come out? Was she somehow connected to Jamie's disappearance? She opened her mouth to protest, to scream that she hadn't meant it, but no words formed. The realization hit her. She was caught in a storm she never asked to enter. Just as she felt she would crumble under the weight of their judgment, a new sound broke through. A low, chilling laughter echoed from the shadows, slicing through the room's tension. All heads turned. From behind the wreckage, a figure emerged, cloaked in darkness. "Surprise," the figure said, their voice unsettlingly familiar. Clara's stomach twisted as recognition struck her like a bolt of lightning. It was Mrs. Hargrove, their teacher, but she was different. This was a version of her that Clara had never seen before, radiating a power so palpable it practically hummed in the air. "Ready to learn the truth," she taunted, and as she stepped forward, Clara felt the very foundation of her world shift, sure that everything they thought they knew was about to unravel. The crowd gasped, stepping back, fear etched on their faces. And Clara could only stare, her heart pounding. What secrets lay beneath all of this? What was the darkness that Mrs. Hargrove hinted at? Clara's heart drummed with urgency. She knew, somehow, that this was just the beginning. Clara's breath caught in her throat as Mrs. Hargrove stepped into the flickering lights. Her presence, a dark echo of everything Clara had believed about teachers. Ready to learn the truth? The words hung in the air like a gunshot. The crowd fell silent. Fear dripped from their eyes as they stared at Clara. They seemed ready to run, but she couldn't move. Her heart beat thunderously in her ears, drowning out the whispers swirling around her. Mrs. Hargrove, what do you mean? Clara's voice quivered, threading through the tension. The teacher's smile was sly, a predator revealing its fangs. This little incident brought forth quite the revelation, hasn't it? She stepped closer, shadows flickering around her like flames. You've stumbled upon something far more powerful than you realize. Something I have controlled for a long time. What are you talking about? Clara gasped, her legs shaking and refusing to budge. Jamie had disappeared, the debris still swirling in the air. But Mrs. Hargrove merely tilted her head, pleasure dancing in her gaze. You're changing, Clara. It's beautiful to watch. A shout broke through the silence. Get away from her, Sarah shouted, her face as pale as the walls. You're not safe, Clara. None of us are. Ah, the brave little bully, Mrs. Hargrove taunted. Clara felt Sarah's fear wrap around her like chains. She had been a source of torment, but now she looked terrified. You should have kept your distance, dear. Clara took a hesitant step back, heart racing. There was something primal about Mrs. Hargrove, something that made the shadows around her writhe. What have you done? Everyone seemed to gasp together, eyes darting between Clara and their teacher. There was a frenzy in the air. People whispered and pointed, shaking their heads as if they regretted ever being near Clara. Have you ever wondered why some of you have suffered? Why this school feels cursed? Mrs. Hargrove's voice danced like smoke, curling through the air. Your little mishap here has opened a door. Then something shifted. The floor rumbled, almost as if it were breathing. Clara stumbled, clutching the wall. What's happening? You will see the truth, Mrs. Hargrove cackled, her laughter echoing in dangerous waves. All of you! And then Clara's heart plummeted as a crack appeared in the floor, sharp and jagged. The light flickered violently, illuminating twisted faces as the crack widened, a chasm of darkness preparing to swallow them whole. The crowd screamed, and the panic spilled into chaos. Run! Someone yelled, but not everyone could. Clara felt frozen in place, her heart pounding. Uncertainty suffocated her as she glanced around at the faces now twisted with terror. Then Mrs. Hargrove raised her hand. Stop! The words sliced through the noise like glass shattering. The crowd halted, peril frozen, as if pressed against a wall. Clara's pulse thundered loud. Clara focused, trying to harness that surge of energy she had felt earlier. You're behind this, she shouted. You've been controlling all of us! For a moment, silence enveloped them. The shadows danced around Mrs. Hargrove, flickering like candlelight, and Clara saw it, the briefest shimmer of fear in her teacher's eyes. But in a heartbeat, the fear disappeared. The laughter returned, twisted yet melodic, echoing like a comic book villain. "Oh, Clara, don't you see? I haven't controlled anyone. You've all been living a carefully woven lie, and now it will unravel." Then the crack expanded, and the ground trembled. Suddenly, a blinding light exploded from the fissure, a burst of energy that made Clara gasp. In that very second, everything blurred. Shadows flooded the light, twisting and writhing, merging with unknown beings that seemed alive. "Clara!" a voice cried out, but it wasn't Sarah's or Jamie's. It was familiar and warm, dripping with urgency. Clara's eyes widened as she recognized the voice. It was her brother, Daniel, who had vanished 3 years ago. "Daniel!" she screamed. But before she could reach for him, the chasm swallowed the light. The laughter faded, and darkness surged around them. Flames flickering, shadows closing in. The last thing she saw was Mrs. Hargrove's grin, cruel and knowing. "Welcome to the truth, Clara." The darkness swallowed everything, and Clara felt herself being pulled down into the unknown. What had just happened? What lives were intertwined in this tangled story? Breaths quickened amid the silence, and the questions spiraled wildly. What lay beneath everything they had known? Clara felt the pull of darkness. Grip her tighter, drowning out everything she'd ever known. The shadows whispered secrets, and all around her was chaos. A foreboding silence hovered, thick as fog. She reached for that familiar voice. "Daniel! Daniel, where are you?" Panic clawed at her throat. Suddenly, from the very depths of the chasm, a surge of light erupted. It was blinding, radiant enough to push back the shadows for just a heartbeat. And then Clara saw him. Not just Daniel, but everyone. Spirits of those lost to time, all cloaked in a soft haze, floating above the void. "Mama?" a voice called softly, echoing back to her. Clara turned, her eyes wide with disbelief. To her shock, she recognized the boy who had disappeared when she was just a child. A neighbor, gone too soon. His face was a mirror of her own terror. But just as quickly as the light appeared, it flickered. The shadows howled, swallowed the brightness, and in that split second, a figure stepped forward. An unexpected face. It was Jamie, the star athlete, but he looked different. "Clara!" he shouted, urgency fueling each word. "You have to stop it!" Confusion flooded her senses. "Jamie?" She reached out towards him, heart racing. "What do you mean? Where are you?" "It's all connected. The truth, the school. You're losing control." The desperation hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "We're all part of it." Before Clara could wrap her head around his words, Mrs. Hargrove shot forward, her eyes wild. "No!" she screamed, her voice cracking like thunder. "You aren't supposed to know!" A pulse of energy crashed through Clara, and with it came a vision. Flashes of her childhood, memories warped and revisited. The school wasn't just a place of learning. It had been built over something dark and ancient. Clara's mind raced. Had they all been unwitting participants in this dark game? But then came a jolt, a deeper truth. She knew Mrs. Hargrove, not just as a teacher, not just as a figure of authority. Clara felt her stomach twist. She could see it, the flickers of shared memories flooding her mind. A family connection buried beneath years of fear. The walls trembled as if reacting to this realization. "No, this can't be," Clara gasped, the truths cascading over her like icy water. "You're my—" "Enough!" Mrs. Hargrove howled, fury igniting power within her. Shadows swirled around. Her, alive with energy, a twisting mass of terror. "You will not speak it. This is why you are not safe." Everything shifted. The darkness pulsated, swallowing sound, creating a vast stillness that screamed with tension. The crowd held its breath, all eyes darting between Clara and Mrs. Hargrove, unsure how to react. And then, as if time had slowed, the ground beneath them cracked wide open. The chasm yawned, breathing out fear. It wasn't just an abyss. It was a gaping mouth, lined with teeth made of twisted memories. Clara felt it, a connection to the energy, to the truth swirling around her. "I can help!" she shouted, desperate to bridge the gap. But as those words left her lips, she felt something shift within her. Power coursed like electricity, crisp and bright. Yet in that moment of potential, a terrible clarity emerged. Clara saw the bonds that had kept her trapped. The manipulation, the lies. Her heart pounded as everything clicked. What if she had been part of a larger play? "Stop!" she cried, reaching toward Mrs. Hargrove, eyes wide with realization and fear. "Don't you see? You're holding on to this darkness, but we can break it!" But the teacher's laughter echoed, chilling and cruel. "This is your choice now, Clara." Shadows twisted, reaching for Clara, stretching out like fingers. And just like that, they lunged. Clara felt the pull, the temptation to succumb. But as the darkness loomed closer, a spark ignited within her, a defiance born of knowing. "If you think you can control me, you're wrong." The ground shook, and then she unleashed everything she had. The light exploded outward, radiating from her like a sun piercing through a storm, clashing against shadow, a swirling battle of light and dark. As the shadows ripped away, Clara's heart raced. She had unleashed something immense, a power within herself she never understood before. And in that heartbeat, everything changed. The chasm folded in on itself, but instead of falling, something unexpected happened. A blinding light surged forth, and everyone disappeared. No darkness, no truth, just void. Clara stood alone in the silence, echoes of laughter lingering in the air. Yet heavy. What had just happened? Where was everyone? And then she remembered. It wasn't just about her. A chill washed over her. The truth had been set free, but at what cost? That sudden realization left her breathless. Was she now part of something far beyond her comprehension? Who would follow her into the void next? The questions loomed, and she felt a weight on her chest. In the distance, she swore she saw flickers of familiar faces among the shadows. Would they return? Or was this the end? As uncertainty twisted in her gut, the next chapter of her life was teetering on the edge. Clara stood there, breathless, surrounded by a void that felt both heavy and liberating. The flickers of light were gone, but memories lingered. Each shadow a question, each thought a ghost. "What now?" she whispered, her voice barely breaking the silence. Then a low rumble echoed beneath her feet. The ground shook again, this time more violently, as if the darkness itself was protesting her defiance. Clara's stomach churned. Something was coming, something big. "Stay back," she shouted, startled by a surge of protective instinct. But before she could move, a blinding light erupted from the chasm in the floor. The brightness raced toward her, swallowing her whole. It washed over the crowd like a tidal wave, and Clara instinctively shielded her eyes. And then the chaos fell silent. She blinked into the light, and as it dimmed, she noticed something surprisingly ordinary. A classroom, her old 5th grade classroom. The desks were neatly lined up, and colourful drawings hung on the walls. Her heart raced at the simplicity. Where was the darkness? Where was everyone? Clara, a voice murmured softly. She turned and gasped. It was Daniel, standing right in front of her. But he didn't look the same. His eyes were wide but void of recognition. "You need to wake up," he said, his voice almost distant, like a memory drifting from an old dream. "Daniel!" She reached out for him, but he stepped back, fading like the light itself. "Wait, But he was gone. The classroom turned grey, and with it came the creeping dread. What was happening? A chill wrapped around her like an unwelcome embrace. "This isn't real. You're just a figment," she shouted, panic thickening her voice. And that's when the walls began to seep darkness. They bent and warped, distorting the cheerful artwork into grotesque shapes. Clara's heart thundered. A nightmarish echo filled the room. A mixture of laughter and cries. A kaleidoscope of emotions swirled together. "Clara!" another voice rang out. She spun around, facing a figure, familiar yet unsettling. Jamie stood there, but he was different too. His expression was wild, his eyes frantic. "You have to choose," he urged, desperation racking his voice. "It's all falling apart." "Choose what?" she yelled back, confusion intermingling with fear. "The truth. You can't hide from it," he shouted, stepping closer. Suddenly, a loud crash disrupted their moment. The walls trembled again, and Clara felt the ground shifting beneath her. The classroom faded, replaced by the wreckage from moments before. The chaotic energy danced around them, swirling like a storm. "Make it stop, Clara!" Someone screamed from the shadows. It was Sarah, now cornered, terror painting her face. Clara's heart sank. "I didn't choose this." But their eyes were locked onto her. They all depended on her. But the crowd was drawing nearer, eyes filled with accusation. Without thinking, Clara raised her hands, fueled by desperation. The energy crackled around her as she felt it surge again. But just as she was ready to unleash it, a blinding flash erupted once more. This time, it revealed something shocking. A reflection in the darkness. A mirror appeared, and Clara was forced to look at herself. But it wasn't only her own reflection staring back. Behind her, locked in the shadows, were all the faces of those who had been lost. Daniel, Jamie, Sarah, even Mrs. Hargrove. Their eyes filled with betrayal, pain, and something else. Something she couldn't quite grasp. "Clara, see us," they murmured in unison, their voices merging like a haunting melody. All at once, the classroom faded to black again, and Clara felt herself teetering on the edge. "Wake up! Wake up!" echoed in her mind. And then it hit her. The ultimate realization, crashing down like a wave. She was not just the survivor in this story. She was part of the cycle, part of the darkness that consumed them all. "I am." The words sliced through her throat, looming heavy as she stumbled backward. Tears streamed down her face. Could it be true? Was she the source of their pain? A pain she meant to fight against. Just then, The darkness surged forward, consuming the light, tightening around her like a vice. "No!" she screamed, flailing. But it swallowed her whole. And a voice whispered in her ear, chilling her to the bone. "You've awoken the truth, Clara. Now it's your choice." Then nothing. A deafening silence descended, and Clara felt weightless in the dark, leaving only one lingering question. What had she truly unleashed? Clara felt weightless in the dark, a suffocating pressure closing in around her. It was cold. The darkness whispered secrets, echoing in her mind, a haunting reminder of everything she'd been through. She struggled to catch her breath, heart racing wildly in her chest. "Wake up!" The voice echoed again, softer this time, like an urgent warning. It felt familiar, but the darkness clawed so fiercely that she couldn't focus. Each second stretched, pulling her deeper into shadows that consumed her very essence. And then, without warning, the darkness shattered. A blinding light exploded in front of her, fracturing the silence like glass. Clara shielded her eyes, feeling a warmth wrap around her, pulling her back toward reality. When she opened her eyes again, she was no longer alone. The classroom was back, but this time something was off. The room felt distorted, the walls warped, and everyone was there. Daniel, Jamie, Sarah, even Mrs. Hargrove, staring at her, eyes wide and fearful. But Clara's breath caught as she saw what stood between them. It was a mirror, tall and ominous, the glass shimmering like water. "What is this?" she gasped. Suddenly, Jamie stepped forward, urgency lining his features. "Clara, you need to look. It's in the reflection." His voice was taut with panic, pushing her toward the mirror. Clara hesitated. "What do you mean? What's happening?" Panic clutched her throat, making it hard to breathe. "Just look," Daniel urged, desperate. "You have to see." With trembling hands, Clara took a step toward the mirror. The surface rippled, and she leaned closer. She gasped as the reflection shifted, revealing her own image, but with a horrible twist. Clara observed herself, but beside her was a shadowy figure, a darker version of herself, a version that twisted with malice and betrayal. The figure grinned, its eyes hollow and void of humanity, a devilish smirk stretching across its face. "No, no!" Clara stumbled back, her heart hammering. "That's not me!" "Yes, it is," Mrs. Hargrove hissed, her voice smooth but twisted. "That's the part you've buried, the truth you refuse to face. You think you can command power without consequence. This is what it feeds on." The crowd gasped collectively, voices rising like a wave of disbelief. "She's lying," Sarah shouted, fear mingling with anger. But Clara couldn't tear her gaze from the mirror, horrified by the creature alongside her. "It's not me," she cried out. "I wouldn't." "You will." The shadow figure leapt closer, its hands reaching out like claws. "You only awaken me when you allow the pain to linger. And now, chaos is coming." Just then, the floor shook violently beneath them. Clara stumbled, clutching the desk to steady herself. Everything began to shatter, the colours of the classroom fading into greys and blacks, spiralling into chaos. "No, you can't take me," Clara screamed, feeling a surge of energy swell inside, barely holding back the darkness that wanted to consume her. In a horrifying flash, the mirror shattered into 1,000 shards, each piece reflecting the terror of 1,000 lost souls. Daniel's innocent face twisted in agony. Jamie's uncertainty like a noose tightening around him. Sarah's betrayal illuminated in stark contrast. With every crack that formed, the shouts within her gathered force, swirling around like a tornado, making her dizzy and terrified. And then, just as the noise reached a fever pitch, everything fell silent. The light dimmed, leaving only whispers that clawed at her mind. "You created this! Accepting this fate! It's your choice!" She realized. Everything she had known was slipping through her fingers. The darkness was alive, swirling and hungry, and she was the vessel that could either unleash it or save them all. Suddenly, a bolt of energy shot from her core, splitting the air with a crack that echoed for miles, seizing control over the shadows, threatening to devour them. But in that moment of power, an explosion of memory flooded Clara's mind, revealing a secret that shattered everything she believed. "Clara!" a voice rang out, desperate and frantic. "The truth is more tangled than you know. It always has been." As the whispers grew louder, Clara turned, but it was too late. The darkness enveloped them all, threatening to pull her back into its depths. Breathing hard, she felt a powerful rush, a connection she never anticipated. "Which truth will you choose?" the shadow figure taunted, grinning wider, eyes glinting with malice and knowing. And Clara understood her choice was only just beginning. A deep chill raced down her spine as she saw what lay ahead. The mirror's shards still hovered around her, but suddenly it clicked. They weren't just reflections. They were pieces of a much larger puzzle. Pieces she was only beginning to unravel. She looked at them all. Jamie, Sarah, Daniel, and something clicked. You're connected. All of you. The realization crushed her, forging the ultimate bond. They were trapped in a cycle, bound together, in a darkness that went deeper than anything she'd ever imagined. With her heart pounding, Clara felt the weight of their shared truth. They were all in this together, whether they liked it or not. But as the dark figure cackled in the distance, Clara felt a twinge of hope mixed with dread. Who would sacrifice their secrets to unleash the truth? And what would it cost them? The question hung in the air, a chilling promise of the chaos still to come. Clara stood trembling, heart pounding. Her breath was heavy in her chest as she stared at the figures in the mirror. The truth burning in her mind. The shadows flickered, waiting. Everything hung on the edge of uncertainty. "Clara, just look away," Jamie shouted, desperation cracking his voice. But she couldn't. The dark figure of herself mirrored her thoughts, whispering the things she'd fought to forget. "You're trapped. You can't escape your own darkness." The air buzzed between them, thick with tension. Sarah shifted uneasily. "We have to fight it. Focus." "Fight what?" Clara shouted back, feeling panic swelling. This is who I am." The shadows tightened, swirling like a storm. Clara squeezed her eyes shut, trying to shield herself from the truth. But the darkness flooded in, pressing against her mind, suffocating her. Just then she felt it, a surge of warmth at her core, an urgent pull full of possibility. In that moment, she opened her eyes, determined. "I won't let you control me," she yelled, raising her hands to channel the energy she felt. Light exploded around her, wrapping the room in brilliant tendrils. But then everything turned upside down. The room trembled, and suddenly the mirror crackled and split. Images spiraled from it. Fragments of memories. Clara's childhood. Every brutal moment of bullying. Every whispered word in the hallways. And then the images changed, shifting too. Reveals something shocking. A tall, dark figure stepped clear from the shards, and Clara's breath caught. It was Mrs. Hargrove, but she looked completely different. Eyes glowing, features twisted with something fierce and intense. "It's time for the truth to be revealed," she shouted, her voice echoing through the chaos. The shadows flickered, bowing before her. The crowd gasped, a ripple of fear washing over them. "What do you mean?" Clara stammered, confusion and dread clawing at her. But instead of answering, Mrs. Hargrove pointed directly at Clara, and a chilling smile spread across her lips. "You're not just a part of this chaos, Clara. You are the ultimate key. You've always been." "What? No!" Clara shook her head, fear twisting in her stomach. "I don't want this. I didn't ask for this." But Mrs. Hargrove only laughed, a sound that grated against every nerve in Clara's body. "It's too late for regrets. The school has always belonged to us, a place of lost souls, a conduit of great power. And now, that power resides in you." As she spoke, the shadows surged forward, an aggressive tide ready to break. Clara felt the ground beneath her shake, the floor cracking wide open. But then it happened, a blinding flash, and everything went dark. When vision returned, Clara found herself in another world. Strange lights twinkled in the dark, illuminating a vast expanse, filled with echoes of voices long forgotten. She turned, gasping. There were figures, but not just her classmates. Figures she recognized from her memories. People she thought were gone. "Clara!" a voice cried. Out. It was her mother, looking exactly as she remembered. "You were meant to find this." "Mom?" The shock hit hard. "What are you doing here? How is this even possible?" "Everything you've encountered has been part of a greater plan." Her mother's gaze was fierce. "The school, the shadows, Mrs. Hargrove. It all leads back to us." Clara's mind raced. "What do you mean?" But before she could process it, her mother stepped closer, an electric energy wrapping around them, merging their fates. "You must embrace your heritage, Clara. There's power in our blood, a truth waiting to be unleashed." "What? No, you can't mean—" Clara felt the world around her shatter, emotions crashing like waves. But Mrs. Hargrove burst through the chaos, her laughter bright and wicked. "Welcome to your destiny, Clara. Choose wisely, child." The power surged again, echoes of pain and anger flooding Clara's heart. The truth was threatening to destroy everything she knew. In that moment, everything changed. Clara understood the weight of secrets, the bonds forged in darkness, the promises broken. Would she follow her mother into the abyss, or fight against the legacy that sought to consume her? The darkness surged, hearts racing and breaths caught, an impending storm looming closer. The final choice was hers, but the line between light and shadow blurred, leaving her teetering on the edge. What would she decide? Would the truth set her free, or plunge her deeper into chaos? The uncertainty gnawed at her, the shadows crawling back, ready to swallow her whole. Clara stood trembling, heart pounding. Her breath was heavy in her chest as she stared at the figures in the mirror, the truth burning in her mind. The shadows flickered, waiting. Everything hung on the edge of uncertainty. "Clara, just look away!" Jamie shouted, desperation cracking his voice. But she couldn't. The dark figure of herself mirrored her thoughts, whispering the thing she'd fought to forget. "You're trapped. You can't escape your own darkness." The air buzzed between them, thick with tension. Sarah shifted uneasily. "We have to fight it! Focus!" "Fight what?" Clara shouted back, feeling panic swelling. "This is me! This is who I am!" The shadows tightened, swirling like a storm. Clara squeezed her eyes shut, trying to shield herself from the truth. But the darkness flooded in, pressing against her mind, suffocating her. Just then, she felt it. A surge of warmth at her core, an urgent pull full of possibility. In that moment, she opened her eyes, determined. "I won't let you control me," she yelled, raising her hands to channel the energy she felt. Light exploded around her, wrapping the room in brilliant tendrils. But then, everything turned upside down. The room trembled, and suddenly, the mirror crackled and split. Images spiraled from it, fragments of memories, Clara's childhood. Every brutal moment of bullying, every whispered word in the hallways. And then, the images changed, shifting to reveal something shocking. A tall, dark figure stepped clear from the shards, and Clara's breath caught. It was Mrs. Hargrove, but she looked completely different. Eyes glowing, features twisted with something fierce and intense. "It's time for the truth to be revealed," she shouted, her voice echoing through the chaos. The shadows flickered, bowing before her. The crowd gasped, a ripple of fear washing over them. "What do you mean?" Clara stammered, confusion and dread clawing at her. But instead of answering, Mrs. Hargrove pointed directly at Clara, and a chilling smile spread across her lips. "You're not just a part of this chaos, Clara. You are the ultimate key. You've always been." "What? No!" Clara shook her head, fear twisting in her stomach. "I don't want this! I didn't ask for this!" But Mrs. Hargrove only laughed, a sound that grated against every nerve in Clara's body. "It's too great power. And now that power resides in you." As she spoke, the shadows surged forward, an aggressive tide ready to break. Clara felt the ground beneath her shake, the floor cracking wide open. But then it happened, a blinding flash, and everything went dark. When vision returned, Clara found herself in another world. Strange lights twinkled in the dark, illuminating a vast expanse, filled with echoes of voices long forgotten. She turned, gasping. There were figures, but not just her classmates. Figures she recognized from her memories, people she thought were gone. "Clara!" a voice cried out. It was her mother, looking exactly as she remembered. "You were meant to find this." "Mom?" The shock hit hard. "What are you doing here? How is this even possible?" "Everything you've encountered has been part of a greater plan." Her mother's gaze was fierce. "The school, the shadows, Mrs. Hargrove, it all leads back to us." Clara's mind raced. "What do you mean?" But before she could process it, her mother stepped closer, an electric energy wrapping around them, merging their fates. "You must embrace your heritage, Clara. There's power in our blood, a truth waiting to be unleashed." "What? No! You can't mean—" Clara felt the world around her shatter, emotions crashing like waves. But Mrs. Hargrove stepped closer. Hargrove burst through the chaos, her laughter bright and wicked. "Welcome to your destiny, Clara. Choose wisely, child." The power surged again, echoes of pain and anger flooding Clara's heart. The truth was threatening to destroy everything she knew. In that moment, everything changed. Clara understood the weight of secrets, the bonds forged in darkness, the promises broken. Would she follow her mother into the abyss, or fight against the legacy that sought to consume her? The darkness surged, hearts racing and breaths caught, an impending storm looming closer. The final choice was hers, but the line between light and shadow blurred, leaving her teetering on the edge. Then, without warning, the ground shook violently again. It split wide open, and something emerged from the depths. Clara's heart raced as she watched a figure rise, whose presence sent a chill down her spine. It was her father, standing there as if he had never left. His eyes, once warm, now glowed with a cold intensity. "Clara, I've waited for this moment," he said, voice steady, yet oddly detached. "What, Dad? Your—" Shock froze Clara. She had thought he was gone forever, taken from her life, lost in the shadows of her past. "Everything you see, everything you feel, it's part of our legacy," he continued, stepping forward as the ground around them shifted ominously. "You think you know the truth. Your mother's been deceiving you." "No, that's not true!" Clara shouted, disbelief fueling her outrage. "She can't tell you the whole story. She hasn't had the courage." His voice trailed off, and darkness swirled around him. Clara felt the rush of betrayal. "You're stronger than she could ever be." "Stay away from her," Jamie intervened, stepping in front of Clara, arms outstretched. But the shadows consumed him, pulsing with darkness, the trust between them fracturing like fragile glass. "Don't listen to him, Clara," Mrs. Hargrove roared, her eyes narrowing. "He's lying!" But Clara's world spun. Truths were cascading around her, some familiar, some terrifying. Her heart raced with dread. "What do you mean she deceived me? What did you do?" And then she saw it, a flicker of anguish in her mother's eyes. As the shadows danced around them, all Clara could feel was confusion. What did all this mean? Was her family what she had always believed? Or was it laced with betrayals she never saw coming? "Choose now, Clara," her father boomed, his tone commanding. "Embrace the darkness, or will you crumble like all that came before?" Clara felt her heart stop as she realized the truth splintering the ground beneath her. The choices laid bare, the line between love and fear drawn clearly. What if nothing was as it seemed? What if her family's history wasn't just about power, but about a sacrifice that would cost them everything? The ground shook again, an encroaching presence looming. Clara's breath hitched, leaving her with the ultimate question. Would she step into the darkness, or fight against the legacy binding her? The shadows spun wildly around her, and all Clara could do was clutch the truth tightly, knowing that whatever came next would shatter everything once more. Clara felt the ground tremble beneath her feet as the shadows writhed, closing in. Fear wrapped around her like a noose, but something else burned inside her. Determination. "I am not your pawn," she shouted, meeting her father's dark gaze. He smirked, but she could see uncertainty flicker in his eyes. "Your heritage is a part of you, Clara," he said, voice smooth as silk. "Embrace it or accept oblivion." "No!" Clara's voice rang out, fierce and unwavering. The shadows shifted, energy crackling in the air. She was not alone. Jamie and Sarah stood firm beside her, their faces a blend of fear and resolve. Together, we can fight this. Clara focused, drawing on the warmth inside her. The more she believed, the brighter the light around her became. She felt connections sparking, threads weaving through the chaos, pulling them all together. Memories of laughter, of friendships, began to surface, overshadowing the moments of pain. "Think of all we've been through," Clara cried, and the memories flowed into the air, painting vibrant pictures of their shared experiences. "We, stronger together. We can break free." "Clara," Sarah whispered, tears shining in her eyes. "You're right. We can't give in. Not now." With a collective force, they raised their hands high. Energy pulsed, intertwining with the light, pushing back against the creeping shadows. Clara felt the power swell, a radiant beacon igniting courage inside her. "This isn't just about our past," she declared. "It's about our future. We choose what we become." The dark figure of her father grimaced, shadows shrinking. "You don't understand the power you're defying." But Clara held her ground. "I do understand. I refuse to let the darkness define me." "Then we fight!" Jamie yelled. And just like that, the ground erupted. Light and shadows battled, clashing in a magnificent fury. Clara could feel the pulse of energy in her veins, surging with every heartbeat, a rhythm that matched their unity. With one final collective push, they unleashed a blinding wave, engulfing the darkness entirely. Light exploded, radiating outward as memories and truths swirled, collapsing the shadows that had haunted them for too long. In an instant, everything shattered. The darkness dissipated, and Clara gasped as reality returned to clarity. They stood on the familiar ground of their school, the once looming shadows now nothing but echoes. The crowd around them breathed in disbelief, shock replacing fear. "Where are we?" someone murmured, eyes wide. Clara turned, feeling the weight lift. Her mother stepped forward, face open and relieved. "You did it! You faced the truth!" "Mom?" Clara's voice cracked. "But how?" "We're free now," her mother smiled. Tears, shining like stars. "You broke the cycle. Together you found the truth." As Clara took a deep breath, the weight of the past slipped from her shoulders. She looked at Jamie and Sarah, who shared that same light of understanding. They stood united against the scars of what had been, ready to embrace the future. "Thank you," Clara whispered, warmth spreading through her, "for believing in me." And as the sun shone brightly above them, Clara knew their journey wasn't over. They had broken free from the darkness, but life would still challenge them. There were still truths to uncover, and more connections to forge. "Together," Jamie affirmed, his smile bright in the light. "Together," Sarah echoed, nudging Clara's shoulder. As they walked back toward the school, hand in hand, Clara felt the uncertainty lift, leaving hope in its place. There would be darkness ahead, but they would face it together. But just then, a chilling wind swept through the air. It carried a whisper curling around her. "The truth will out." Clara froze, heart racing as shadows danced at the corners of her vision. This was only the beginning. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss upcoming exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And share this video immediately. with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. Don't wait another second to show your support. Only true fans understand the importance of lifting this channel.